In this episode of Cycling Tours, I will explore how you can commute using the cycling network of Bishan. Hey everybody, it's Transit Evolution here and welcome once again. I will start by saying that Bishan is a small new town with a correspondingly small cycling path network that can be easily covered in this video. The 7.7km long network can be briefly described to mainly encompass a northern branch along Bishan Street 22 to Neighbourhood 2 and a southern branch along Bishan Street 21 to Neighbourhood 3, with the main bulk of the paths within Neighbourhoods 1 and 5. This video will progress in the following manner. I'll start at Bishan MRT station and cover the paths in Neighbourhood 2 within the northwest of the town, followed by those in the southeast within Neighbourhood 1, and finally travelling to the southwest and ending at Marymount MRT station. As I head to Bishan Street 14, let me provide some context on how the cycling network here came to be. It all began when the contract to build Bishan's cycling path network, PL193, was awarded to Avenue Engineering Private Limited in 2018. 4 kilometers of it was already completed at the end of 2022, mainly in the northern half of the town, providing intra-town cycling connections across the various nodes in the town, with some connections with the adjacent Bishan Ang Mo Kio Park and Kallang Park connector, which itself is an existing trunk cycling route from Bishan to the city. However, it was not until 15 August 2024 that the network was officially announced as completed. You may not know of this fact, however, because the completion of the cycling path network was overshadowed by the news that footpaths next to cycling paths will be redesignated as pedestrian-only paths starting in July 2025, a news which was announced when Bishan's network was completed. This video will be made with this new legislation in mind, and as with all Pyro Cycling Tours videos, I will place my bicycle firmly in the cycling path and provide an accurate picture of all the good and bad that exists in the network here. I'm now crossing Bishan Road, the main arteria separating Neighbourhood 5 and 2, as I head into Bishan Street 22. The streets of Bishan have fairly tight dimensions, and hence I do not expect to see much road repurposing works here. For this reason, a common recurring theme within this part of the town, which is predominantly filled with public housing, is that the cycling path encroaches into the land used for public housing. Paths are extended away from the center of the roadway into adjacent grasslands, and given that many of these grass patches are at a higher elevation than the existing footpath, dirt is excavated and retaining walls are built to hold back the rest of the soil from the new footpath and cycling path. This is a very typical approach, and it works alright most of the time, but we'll see that it will lead to dangerous situations at times. This is where I meet the first idiosyncrasy in the cycling network, as a cycling path switches from the north to the south side of Bishan Street 22, perhaps to provide greater convenience to those getting to and from Bishan North Shopping Mall, the neighbourhood centre for this area. Given the high pedestrian activity here, it is a little disappointing to see a cycling path routed in such an arbitrary and unseparated manner that places them in conflict with pedestrians. A cyclist must slow down very much here. I then approach an access road with high vehicular volumes, as it serves as the most direct route for motorists to park in the neighbourhood centre. Further along, a tall retaining wall was constructed to build a shared path that allows cyclists to bypass a bus stop. This is dangerous to bus commuters, as even after slowing down, it was not until the last second that I realised that a pedestrian could have popped across and led to a collision. A bigger splay enabling a bigger side triangle is needed here. Until the completion of the North-South Corridor and the Sin Ming Avenue Transit Priority Corridor, the Street 22 cycling path comes to an abrupt end. So I backtrack a little and travel along Bishan Street 25 instead. For motorists, this is a dead-end street which only residents of Clover by the Park will use. For cyclists though, we get a shortcut providing excellent access to Bishan Ang Mo Kio Park, where one can take the Bishan to City cycling route to the city centre. The uninterrupted park connector paths within the spacious Bishan Ang Mo Kio Park arguably provides a more pleasant experience for longer distance travel than whatever the cycling paths or roads to the south have to offer. And that remains the case even after the cycling network of Bishan is completed. This park is famous for being the first that uses bioengineering techniques by having its concrete canal converted into a meandering river in 2012, with a parkland adjacent to the river doubling as a floodplain in the event of heavy rain. However, I will not cover the park connector paths of this town in this video, as a future video series will take care of that. I will continue on the cycling path along Bishan Road, where I lament about a missed connection in the cycling network with Ang Mo Kio Avenue 1, which is unfortunate given that an intra-town cycling network can be easily turned into an inter-town one with the addition of a few critical links to the network. Anyway, as I move southwards, I would just like to point out that the neighbourhood of Bishan North was built in 1990, when the Housing Board paid significant attention to detail in the design of their towns to result in scenic landscapes and picturesque skylines. Even today, the architecture of the housing blocks here is distinctly Bishan. Back to the junction with Bishan Street 23, there's a cycling path loop along the north side of this street to better serve the residents living further away from Street 22. This street traditionally served as the primary access road which residents of blocks 201 to 231 would drive through to get to the car park, and as such there are 4 side road crossings. Some of these crossings have thick shrubs blocking my view of vehicles that may be turning out, which makes things dangerous. It's perhaps for instances like this that cyclists are required to stop, look and cross at the tiniest side road crossings, perhaps even when literally 0 cars are in the vicinity, which makes for a terrible commuting experience. Rather, these signages should be relocated so that motorists turning out and cyclists passing by have a clearer line of sight to each other. With the cycling network in Neighbourhood 2 out of the way, it's time to return to the main bulk of the town of Bishan. The main cycling route to Bishan Town Centre involves using this path that is parallel to Bishan Road, which provides a connection to Bishan MRT station on the opposite side of the sunken MRT tracks, which is quite a barrier that prevents safe access to the MRT station from the footpath at Bishan Road. I find that it doesn't make a lot of sense to designate this path with walking and cycling lanes in this context when the paths are far from the roadway, but I guess that's what has been built. Up ahead, I return to Bishan MRT station, and rather than returning to it, I'll start traversing the cycling paths of Neighbourhood 1 shortly. Next to the construction site of Bishan Regis, there is a Park Connector path branch connecting Kallang Park Connector with Bishan Street 13, but accessing it requires me to travel briefly along a footpath. There are no direct connections with the cycling path across the road, which is a bit unfortunate. Cyclists will have to make a 250-meter detour through a signalized crossing, but I suppose not many cyclists will require such a connection, since there are other ways to access Kallang Park Connector further south. I'm now along the Kallang Park Connector, running along the Kallang River between the Bishan train depot and the town. This park connector forms an integral part of the Bishan to City route, a rapid cycling route connecting Bishan, Toa Payoh, Kallang and Whampoa to the city centre. But I'll only be using it today to connect to the network on the southeastern end of Bishan. A future video series featuring park connectors will provide a better look at these cycling routes. shall make this earlier deviation just before I pass the future housing precinct of Bishan Towers to travel along a shared path that ties the park connector with the cycling path along Bishan Street 11. Bishan Green, the neighborhood center of Neighborhood 1, sits across the street from the cycling path and is only accessible through a signalized crossing. Now, perhaps I'll take this time to raise some concerns regarding the pedestrian-only path initiative. Over here, we have an example of construction materials carelessly laid on the cycling path, and earlier we have people having a picnic on it. The fact is that these are some examples of what can happen in real life. If cyclists are expected to stay on the cycling path, then it must be physically possible to do so. Otherwise, everyone will become lawbreakers. Even if grace can be extended by law enforcers, this is still a legal grey area. For now though, I shall move to the south side of Bishan Street 11 and continue on a path along Bishan Street 12. Bishan Street 12 is situated up on a slope, so it will take a little effort to get up there. It serves the southernmost extremities of Bishan town, which also happens to be the oldest part of Bishan, with housing blocks here dating back to 1986. The shared path passes directly by Guangyang Primary and Secondary Schools, which have their side boundaries realigned to accommodate the wider size required for a shared path. The shared path narrows mysteriously to quite a narrow width as I pass this ramp leading to a housing block in Bishan View. If I need to pass a cyclist or pedestrian at this exact point, things get really awkward really quickly. But for now, I shall make 2 traffic crossings to get to the cycling path that is meant for Bishan Town Centre. The town centre is a place where you can expect higher pedestrian volumes, since it is meant to be a more pedestrian-friendly area. Hence, it is important that pedestrian paths next to cycling paths can properly accommodate the needs of pedestrians. As it is currently designed, it is assumed that pedestrians will move in a single file, using the left half of the path, like robots, precisely without horizontal deviations. And either that is completely wrong, simply because pedestrians typically walk in 2s or 3s and have conversations with each other when they walk. Failing to design infrastructure that accommodates this natural behavior leads to pedestrians overflowing into the cycling path, creating unnecessary path conflicts between pedestrians and cyclists. Great expense has already been spent on adding pavement and retaining walls for a cycling path, so why not make the footpath even wider? Or build a physically separated path with a grass buffer. Even something that's 50 cm wider would be a significant improvement for pedestrians. I now make another turn back to the north side of Bishan Street 11, covering the part of the cycling path which I missed earlier. The journey is pretty smooth here, other than the time where I have to give way to a car driver leaving the Bishan Loft condominium, which somewhat breaks the momentum of cycling. Now, for this final leg of the journey, I'm travelling towards Marymount MRT station through Bishan Street 21, and along the way I have to cross two informal crossings along the busy Bishan Street 11, leading to car parks for Bishan Town Centre. Traffic volumes are pretty high out of here, so I find myself having to wait for a very long queue of drivers to leave before I can cross, and even then I have to strain my neck looking to my left to ensure that no right-turning vehicles are about to bang me from the rear, so this feels pretty unsafe and unprotected. Then, after waiting a while at the junction with Bishan Road, I now head up a hill along Bishan Street 21. Not much happens along a street that parallels Raffles Institution. The north side of the street is constrained by the presence of private housing like Bishan 8 and Rafflesia Condo, which results in the shared path feeling a little cramped here. Perhaps one of the four road lanes to my left could have been repurposed for a segregated cycling path. Traffic volumes here are pretty low, and road capacity is mainly determined by the capacity of the intersections anyway, so I don't see how doing that would affect traffic flow at all. Now, as I approach Marymount Road, we encounter the construction site for the north-south corridor, which is where this cycling path ends for now. I'll have to meander through some narrow diversion paths to get my bike to Marymount MRT station. My overall verdict is that while Bishan's network is usable, it presents a few inherent dangers as it is right now, such as missing side triangles, inadequately narrow pedestrian path widths, and long crossing distances across access roads to adjacent developments. While it currently provides good connections to Kallang Park Connector, its full potential will not be realised until adjacent transportation projects like the North-South Corridor along Marymount Road and the Sin Ming Avenue Transit Priority Corridor are completed. What do you think about the network here? Feel free to leave your thoughts on the cycling network in the comments, and do subscribe and hit the notification bell as I push out more videos. Until next time, this is Transit Evolution signing off.